Hi folks, welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to pattern a vehicle seat. This is a VWT4 seat that I'm patterning, but you can use this technique for any kind of car seat, whether it's a traditional classic seat or it's a modern car seat. The patterning technique is exactly the same. So let's get started. I've already removed the cover from this. I have the foam and the base itself, the seat pan that the foam sits onto, and I've already drawn on a line, a seam line. So the black line is where the seam will go, and I put match marks on. So I've got match mark here. This is the centre line, so I've measured from this point to this point to get the centre line, and I put a few match marks along the edge. This is a symmetrical seat, so I'm not going to pattern both sides. I'm just going to pattern one side and take measurements for these centre panels. So I'll measure the centre panels first. I'm just using a dressmaker's tape measure. They're just more flexible than a regular tape measure. It's easier to use. And I'm going to measure from here, from the centre of this recess to where the seam is. That's 7.5 inches. So I'm going to mark, so it's 7.5, and then again I'll measure the width. So from the centre to centre it's 12.5. So 12.5. So I've got the measurement for the front panel. I'll do the same for the back panel. So that's 16.5 deep. I've not put any seam allowance measurements on there. I'll add all those at the end. Now I'm going to pattern this side bolster. So for this I need some patterning fabric, some upholstery skewers. This is the upholstery or the patterning fabric. It's a plastic fabric, you can see through it, you can write on it. So this is what I use. You can use a piece of plastic as long as it doesn't have too much stretch in it, because if it does, then it'll become misshapen. This doesn't stretch. Pretty stiff. You can stretch it a little bit. It will stretch a little bit diagonally like fabric does, but not a lot. So I'll just start by just roughly pinning it. Make sure I've got enough for over the end. I'll just do a rough cut of the plastic just to get rid of the excess. That's our rough shape. I'm going to put a nick here and one here. So in this recess here there's a metal rod that hooks to metal that is embedded into the foam itself. When the foam's moulded, it's put in there. Where it turns over the foam here, I'm going to put a few little nicks in it just to help the plastic come over the top. And I'm just going to put a pin in there. I'm going to do the same at the back end. So I'll just pin it so it kind of hooks over in places. I'll put a few nicks in just to help the plastic sit correctly. A few more pins in. So a few more little nicks just where it starts to curve. You can never use too many pins. Put a little bit of tension onto the pattern plastic, so that should be sufficient now. So all I need to do is to draw on the plastic now. So all the marks that I've got onto the foam I'm going to transfer onto the plastic. So I'm not drawing a full line, I'm not trying to draw the whole line in. I'm just putting dashes in so I can join the dashes up once I take the plastic off. Put in where this seam joins here. Put in where the end of the wire will be, or the metal rod would be. So both ends, and then put any match marks I've put onto the foam, I'll transfer over. Put an arrow so I know which way forward is. Now I can remove the pins, and there we have the pattern. So I'll draw the full lines on now. So that's all the lines connected. I'm going to double check this pattern and the measurements on the seat. So the first measurement here, the front panel was 7.5 inches. So I'll just double check. So there we go, 7.5 inches, 16.5. So that's spot on. I'm going to add ½ an inch to this, so plus 1/2. So that's plus 1/2 there. So ½ an inch. And then I need to put seam allowances on as well. So I'll cut this out now, and then I need to pattern the actual border, the piece that goes around this edge. I'm just going to double check it. Happy after that, I'm going to take off a little bit from this here. So I'm going to do the same with the side border now. So that's roughly on there. I need to do the same as with the bolster, tighten it all up, make sure it's sitting nicely. Bottom of the seat pan. Join the dots. So I'm now going to cut out this pattern. I need to transfer both patterns to Mylar. Mylar is just a rigid, no, it's not rigid, but it's like a plastic. You can roll it up, and it's really good for patterns, because once you've made a pattern out of Mylar, you can use it multiple times, and you can draw straight around it. It doesn't deform on the edge when you put a pen or pencil against it. So I've transferred the patterns over to Mylar now. The pin to the bench so you can see what I've done. I've added the seam allowance to the Mylar pattern. Now that I've done that, I can just draw around the Mylar pattern because the seam allowance is added on. Because I'm cutting multiple pieces of the same thing, so it'll be 4 of the side bolsters and also 4 of the side borders as well. It's much easier to have it on a pattern that you just draw straight around, rather than having to add seam allowance every time to this original pattern. I can just draw around these. So I've added my seam allowance, all the match marks have been added. I've just notched out the Mylar so it makes life easier to add in the match marks. Any extras that I need to add on, I've added on. And I've also put on the measurements for the centre panel. And these measurements are the measurements I cut at, so I've added seam allowances to these measurements as well. You don't have to use Mylar for this, you can use cardboard if you want to. Mylar is quite handy because you can just roll it up. It's easy to store, so roll up like that. It's really easy to store, whereas cardboard or hardboard or whatever you use isn't quite as easy to store. If you want to get any of this patterning plastic, you can just direct message me. I can send you some. It works out about £1.50 a metre, or square metre. It's quite wide, it comes in just over 2 metre wide rolls. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, like and subscribe. If you want to see these made up, I'll be posting that video soon. So hit the notification bell to see the progress with that one. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.